but define the problems, because that yields better results, targeted action, and it gives employees. The moment we say grassroots, we are talking about an average employee, not Einstein's. People like people like me, who are as average can be. If all of us have to contribute, then it is better that we are given certain guidelines and areas within which to focus our effort. It's like, banks of a river. If the banks are defined, then the river flows well. Same as the case with innovation. So it's always good to ring fence with certain predefined problems to solve. See, innovation doesn't happen in vacuum, and it doesn't start or end in boardrooms either. Innovation is done by associates on the ground, day in and day out.
If you know me by now, you know that I do care and do believe that every one of us can innovate and that every one of us can activate other innovators. These are skills that can be acquired and not necessarily the ones that we are born with. Making innovation happen is a capability that each one of us can cultivate. And the beauty of it is that we don't always need to have innovation in our title to make it happen and to lead and activate innovators around us. So today I'm talking to one of such leaders. For 35 years, my guest today has led teams to deliver excellence in the information technology industry. His career was about making large, complex things run well. And somewhere inside that mission, he discovered that you cannot separate operational excellence from the daily act of people improving their own work. We call it incremental improvement or incremental innovation. Across all the roles that he's held, he says that there was always an element of innovation or innovation initiative, and he never held that in his title. In his most recent chapter, he served as Senior Vice President for Global Delivery Excellence at Cognizant. This is a consulting company with over 250,000 employees across the globe. While there, he built Bluebolt, a program that has activated, in his own words, the grassroots innovators in the organization. I was very much looking forward to hosting him in this episode and learn from his hands-on experience on two questions. Why is it necessary to activate innovators in such a large enterprise? And then when you decide to do so without the title, how do you do it effectively? So if you are a leader who does not have innovation in their title, or even if you do, this episode may be for you, especially if you just got mandated to lead a similar initiative in your organization. I'm your host, Iliriana Kachaniku, an innovation strategist at heart, and this is Activate Innovation Lounge podcast. Together, we're on a mission to help leaders with or without innovation in their title to activate innovators, innovation, and innovation culture. This is your podcast. Follow wherever you're listening, and let's welcome Alexis Samuel to the first half of this two-part discussion. Alexis Samuel, welcome to Activate Innovation Lounge. I'm very thrilled to talk to you today because you're one of the rare leaders who has led innovation and activated innovators in the workplace, but has not held the title of innovation in the job title. Before I share more about you to the audience, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Who is Alexis Samuel? How should they know you?
Thank you, Liliana. I'm glad that you sort of located me, not having known each other before. Nice to be doing this with you. I've spent about 35 years in the industry, a significant portion of it in the IT services industry, and a good portion of it in CX level roles, say from 2009 onwards. My last role being that of Senior Vice President and Global Delivery Excellence Leader for Cognizant. In this role, I was responsible for the management oversight, risk governance of all IT services projects that Cognizant delivered to its clients. Prior to that, I was with Wipro for about 17 years, where I was the head of, I was the managing partner for the global consulting business. I led the business globally. Prior to which, I was the Chief Risk Officer and Corporate Ombudsperson for Wipro Corporation as a group. Now, over the last few months, I've left Cognizant. I'm in the process of setting up Threshing Sledge Consulting to consult with and make myself available to senior execs in IT related services, both in firms and in IT services firms. So that's me in brief.
So, over 35 years in technology, and you've driven innovation, as you also highlighted, without having innovation in your title. So, why was that? And what was this journey like?
Incidentally, I have uh, played this kind of a role for a long time, especially in delivery excellence. It's a very encompassing role, all the way from assessing the deliverability of large deals to contracts to executing them to assessing them for quality and cost and schedule. Making sure that the whole infrastructure and scaffolding is in place to deliver these things well without actually delivering, that is done by another team, was part of the role. So as part of this, notwithstanding the fact that it was not part of my title, continuous innovation and improvement was also part of the charter. Now, how it came about was there was a team in Cognizant then that was running kind of innovation initiative. But when the new CEO, Ravi, I mean, I must credit a lot of what you see in the public media about Blue Bolt Innovation Program to what Ravi, our current CEO, I mean, of Cognizant, I'm using current because I've just left them, set it up. He took a look at what we were doing then and said, "Hey, Alex, this is not the hustle in town. I have not heard about it. Clients have not heard about it. We need to rebrand, step it up, and I'm willing to support." And he sort of helped us recast the charter, rebrand it, and provided a lot of air cover right through the time that I was leading it, resulting in what you're able to see in the public media today. So that's how innovation came to be part of my global delivery excellence charter. Because in a professional IT services firm, like the ones that I have been exposed to, the two are very closely linked. It is difficult to separate innovation at the workplace versus innovation in the firm. It's all together. That's the reason why I landed up doing what I.
So, Alexis, this led you to grassroots innovation. Why grassroots innovation then?
In IT, in services and in professional services, that's where my experience is. Innovation and work go hand in hand. They are intertwined into an associate's day-to-day routine. It is very difficult to split the two, and hence they are both tied together because it is associates who are delivering projects to clients. It is the same employees who are also innovating at the client face in what they do. And hence, grassroots innovation because it covers all associates in a company. In a professional services setup, I don't think it is any different, say, in a Toyota or a manufacturing setup, because it's the employees are essentially doing similar things. But that's a shop floor. Here, it is a different type of floor, but the fundamental mechanisms don't change, and hence grassroots because we want to involve everybody. And it is employees who give ideas, who convert ideas, implement them, and make them effective at the client face, and hence grassroots.
The term resonated with me so much because the entire idea or mission of the work that I do is to activate innovators everywhere. And those grassroots really refer to people anywhere in the organization and especially the front lines. But
Yeah.
also in my previous life, I was leading innovation in post conflict state building setting. And it was always about activating the grassroots citizens and civic innovators. So for me, it was so thrilling to see the term being adopted in a corporate world as well and recognizing that individual agency of employees to lead innovation. So that's why when I learned about Blue Bolt as the initiative and Gen AI hackathon, I was really so excited and curious to learn more about it. So why was Blue Bolt then specifically important? And then Gen AI hackathon for organizations like Cognizant, and in general, why would initiatives like that be relevant and seen as relevant for other similar organizations?
Here again, I would credit, that's a good question, Iliriana. I would credit then our CEO, Ravi, because he's the one who said, look, we have to raise the bar. Now, let me give you a context. When you when you say innovation to anybody in a firm, what immediately comes to mind is what is your iPod moment? What is your Tesla moment? Which means they think of large, disruptive, globally impactful innovations as innovations. We face the same problem in our teams. And I've heard this story across many large firms. So our intent was, and the intent of any large firm that wants to do this at scale should be to broaden the definition of what innovation means, to draw everybody in. Let me explain. I would think innovation can be classified into three buckets: the continuous incremental innovation, which is all about making things better, making my work better, making my code better, making my product that much better, or improving efficiencies, improving quality, doing things faster. These are all about small incremental innovations. Innovations, nevertheless, but at the point of work, at the level of the employee. The Japanese called it kaizens. The next level, as this scales in an organization and levels up, you come to what is called as adjacent innovations, which is slightly larger. It is about making things different, which is add a functionality, add a user journey, add a product feature, add a new service, or find out new ways of doing things and things like that. Let me give a example slightly later. So that is adjacent innovation.
Correct.
There is something existing and we are adding something to it. The last one and the most impactful, the iPad type ones, are the transformative disruptive innovations. Now, unless one is in an innovation lab or is a Nobel laureate or things like that, or an Einstein by birth, transformative innovations are few and far in between in a generation. They don't happen every day. But adjacencies and continuous incremental innovation happen all the time. For example, let's take the life cycle, I mean, the life history of a battery storage device. We
Mhm.
started with lead acid batteries maybe 150 years back. Then we had nickel cadmium batteries, then lithium ion batteries, and lithium sulfur batteries today. Now, each of this could be a transformative innovation. But within that category, how to charge faster, how to store more, how to reduce the weight, how to reduce the weight to power ratio, volume to power ratio, all these are adjacent innovations that take place within the technology itself. And within that, there are incremental innovations are also happening all the time. So, for innovation to succeed and pervade through the culture of an organization and thereby impact its profitability and market price, as one would expect, then a good grassroots innovation program has to encompass all three types of innovation that can come from the same associate, cluster of associates, different layers of the management, does not matter, but it is across the board, across the whole organization.
This is so nostalgic in a way for me, because when you mentioned the nickel cadmium batteries, I do remember that those were the first rechargeable
Yeah.
batteries that we had in our humanity. And my late father worked in a company that produced them in Kosovo. And being in the marketing side, he was the one who kept promoting them throughout the former Yugoslavia trade fairs. So I remember having access to those first rechargeable batteries. And it's impressive to see how far the technology of energy storage has arrived, and probably it's just a scratch of compared to how far it is going to continue to evolve. And I love when we have initiatives like Blue Bolt and Gen AI, a hackathon to activate innovators to think about problems like that. One more question that I'm curious to learn about the Blue Bolt, for example, when you organize initiatives like that, do you open that up for employees for them to find the opportunities to solve something and to create a new improvement and create either an incremental innovation or adjacent? Or do they work better if you start inviting them based on specific problems that you want them to solve and one that is important for the business and the company?
That's a good question. So uh, let me sort of look back into my early years in factories, then subsequently leading manufacturing organizations, and then at Wipro, and then subsequently at Cognizant. Across the board, there have been elements of innovation and innovation related initiatives across all the roles that I have played in some shape
Perfect.
or form, right? Because I've been in leadership roles for long. What I have found is a complete lies if a kind of innovation approach doesn't yield tangible results. It is always good to ring fence the innovation initiative, focus it on specific problems that an organization wants solved. Now, this could be at different levels and different categories. Let me explain. If you want to solve a profitability problem, or a sales problem, or a returns problem, or a recall problem, then that is one level of problem definition. Then one can decide, I want to solve it at the factory level, I want to solve it at the division level, series of factories. I want to solve it at the business level, series of divisions, and run it at different unit levels. Or you can even solve it at the machine shop level. Now, the equivalent in a services organization could be account, strategic business unit, and the firm. So define, you can pick the level that one wants to run an initiative, but define the problems because that yields better results, targeted action, and it gives employees. One moment we say grassroots, we are talking about an average employee, not Einstein's. People like people like me who are as average can be. If all of us have to contribute, then it is better that we are given certain guidelines and areas within which to focus our effort. It's like banks of a river. If the banks are defined, then the river flows well. Same as the case with innovation. So it's always good to ring fence with certain predefined problems to solve. And now this can be in quarter one, we will solve a type of problem. Quarter two, something else. Client one, a type. Client two, something else. Could be different things for different people under the
Uh-huh.
same banner, but it is better to define problems, ring fence them, and direct the innovative effort in a deliberate manner.
I cannot agree more with you. And then I'm thinking like initiatives, like grassroots innovation initiatives, with the model, with the problem being defined at either level, like this is so valuable to understand because, first of all, you're highlighting a truth that we rarely talk about, that a problem has many facets. And what we see sometimes is always just the symptom of the problem or the tip of the iceberg, while there's so much more to the problem that is underneath, like underneath the surface. And so when we look at that chain of like a chain reaction of the problem, we can have different interventions at different points to help that problem be eliminated, hopefully, or like at least temporarily, because then we don't want to end innovation. So, what are the kinds of initiatives that you've seen that work really well to activate grassroots innovators? What are the initiatives that maybe work better at the middle level? And then are there initiatives that work well on a executive level? How do we activate innovators at all these different levels to tackle different aspects of a problem?
That's a
You're
good question.
smiling.
I'm going to give you a longish answer. Let me call it the baker's dozen. Now,
Okay.
I have gone by the sequential Sequence has been decided based on what I think is more important and how to run it down. Of course, you might come at it differently, but I've made a note, so let me go through it one by one. Here goes the baker's dozen. First, and I know in my mind, this is the zeroth step, is get CEO buy-in, get CEO sponsorship. That is super critical for an initiative like innovation, grassroots innovation specifically, which does not have a defined business case or ROI built in. It's very difficult to put a number. So CEO buy-in and sponsorship is super critical. And Ravi, in my past life, did a superb job of it. Second, as a leader, with or without a title, set a clear vision and set measurable but stretch goals. That's the second. Third, brand the initiative well. Spend time in branding. Figure out what is going to be my positioning outside, what is going to be my positioning inside, what is the umbrella brand, what are the sub brands. Because a grassroots innovation program, if conceived well, over the years will yield multiple sub layers of activities. The brand should be able to handle all that without too much of a conflict and without too much of a confusion. So spend time with the marketing guys to brand the program well. Then pick a leader. Whom do you pick is always a challenge, right? Pick a leader who's known in the company, who has credibility in the company, who has good network in the company. You don't want an initiative such as this to be struggling in the initial days where people are figuring out, hey, who is this guy or girl trying to lead this? Who's this woman? Who's this man? That's not a challenge you want to face. So pick a non credible face. Then flow down goals. Goals at the senior levels or goals at the junior levels alone don't make a difference. The goals for innovation could be layered, have to flow from all the way from the CEO down. Now, at the CX levels, I could carry, or my supervisor could carry, revenue and a margin goal and the number of ideas implemented, etc. But as it goes down, they should get layered all the way down to the associate. That is super critical. Flow down the goals right across the organization. Then, visible rewards and recognition program. That's another important thing. We will discuss probably a little later. You can make a note about one-time rewards or many small rewards, how to strike a good balance. A good rewards and recognition program is super critical. Then at the middle and senior management levels, I have found what works well is link it to the bonus program with sufficient kickers. Don't make it another lever to take out bonus from people's pockets. No, make it a lever by which people can earn a little more with kickers for special programs like this. And that really, it need not be material, but if people know, hey, this is a discretionary effort I'm going to spend outside of, in addition to my day to day work, but I also have a kicker possibility in my quarterly or annual bonus plan that works well. It doesn't break the company's back. The accountants listening to your podcast need not worry because it will pay back. When 300, 400,000 people in an organization are innovating, the bonus kicker is least of the problems because the results far outweigh the cash outflow due to this bonus kickers, which is super critical. Again, a learning. Then raise the bar all the time. What was superior performance in 2024 should be moderate or mediocre performance in 2025, and so on. So the bar has to raise not incrementally, but disruptive. If the year one of the launch of a grassroots innovation program started with the goal of, say, one idea per person per year in a 500,000 people organization, year two should straight take it to 10 ideas. There's nothing incremental about running programs like this. It has to be disruptive, it has to be non-linear. And There should be, the R&R to support it. So raise the bar all the time. Point number 8. Point number 9 of the baker's dozen is train, train, train all the time. Train people on what your company's innovation methodology is. Train them on the platforms that the company has. Train them on thinking, design thinking methods, creative thinking methods, and stuff like that all the time. Then the important thing in training is once trained, always trained does not apply. Refresh training programs every year and reset the meter, which means every year an associate has to undergo fresh training on matters pertaining to innovation, thinking, etc. It cuts both ways. One, as an associate, it keeps me refreshed. Two, as a leader of the innovation program, it forces me to develop new content, new methods, new thinking, new templates, new blueprints for innovation. And then it's like sharpening the knife on both sides and keeps the organization sharp. That's important. Train, 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 and refresh. Then comes to implementation. This cannot be a side of desk activity. For the leader, it could be, but there needs to be a dedicated core team that lives and breathes innovation and lives and breathes this initiative for the lifetime of the initiative. Now, I must acknowledge here, whatever you see in the press on Blue Bolt, etc., was not the result of the superlative work that I did. No, it was definitely a supervisor's support, the CEO in this case, my supervisors, and a great team that supported, which is very essential. A purpose built, resourced, and team is very critical to run an initiative of this scale in organizations of this size. Then, reporting and governance. What gets measured gets done. What does not get measured will never get done, it will only get talked about. So, governance and reporting uh, that that is rigorous, that has monthly, weekly, quarterly, annual reporting cycles is super critical. I said weekly intentionally because the rhythm of daily and weekly reporting is what keeps initiative like this on the tracks. So that reporting and governance is critical. Now, another subtle word on reporting, when I said measure, measures should be both engagement measures and effectiveness measures in initiatives like this, where the large organization is involved. And we learned this earlier in my days at Wipro, where we ran lean initiatives across the company, lean manufacturing, transcribed to IT. We always said, what is the engagement metric? What is the effectiveness metric? To make sure that while the organization is getting drawn in through the engagement measures, we don't lose sight of the effectiveness of what we are trying to do. So all the dollar measures, impact measures will come in the effectiveness side. The number of people and the indices, different indices will come on the engagement side, both of which are critical. Now on the measure side, what I have learned that is little more important from a client, from analysts, from CXOs, and from an accountant point of view, as a person running the initiative, is the measures that the leader reports should be authentic and should be traceable. Both are critical. Authenticity is there should be verifiable evidence to what is being reported. Traceability is it should be traceable in due course over the next, say, 3 years' time. Moment authenticity and traceability are established, which means conservative reporting by design, then the larger organization of leadership tends to see value and does not discredit what is being reported. So I've always told my teams, not only in this and everything else, conservative reporting that is authentic and traceable ultimately wins over everything else. That is fundamental to remain credible while running a large program. irrespective of irrespective of what the program is. But in this case, we are talking about grassroots innovation. Then the 12th point before the baker's dozen is we have to talk about it. Talk about it internally, talk about it to media, talk about it to clients, talk about it all the time for two simple reasons. One, people are busy, they don't know what's going on unless they are told. Two, they will push back saying, hey, you're saying all this, but I've not seen this. I have not heard it when I come to visit you, but I don't see it on the ground. So that pushback is important for us to remain honest to ourselves, such that the program runs. Lastly, and probably most importantly, is the scaffolding of psychological safety to the associates. It's so important, especially for an innovation program and for everything else in organizations, that associates, that is, employees, have intellectual safety within the firm. They feel respected irrespective of their idea getting implemented, the idea getting awarded, or their idea getting dropped as not implementable. All three should be done in the context and within the scaffolding of good psychological safety for an employee. Once that is provided, you will suddenly see it's like, things blossom all across the firm because people know I'm not going to be rated and ranked by the type of idea I give, but I'm definitely going to be rated and ranked if I don't give any idea at all. So that psychological safety that underpins the very psyche of the organization is so important, and that is where leaders come to play. The middle management, senior management, and top management comes to play to make it all very fertile for employees to contribute. I know it's a long answer, but I've thought through this, having lived through this in many cycles and in many avatars. So I thought I lay it out all to you.
No, I love your answer, your baker's dozen. This is a fantastic framework to start with. But first of all, this is a baker's dozen is the foundation that you have put together that can allow any innovation management program within a corporation to really start on a very solid foundations. Because what you highlighted is really all focused on how do we prepare, how do we organize till we get the innovations sourced from the grassroots innovators and the middle managers and the leaders. Hello, everybody may have an idea. You said like one idea a year per person and take it to 10 ideas a year per person could be a metric. That means that even the CEO should share ideas because CEO will have ideas. He is a customer elsewhere or she. But there are a few things that I want to dive a bit deeper with you on this one. First of all, you mentioned one thing that is very rarely talked about, and that is how do we motivate the middle management leaders about being the leaders of the innovation and not gatekeepers, because they tend to be gatekeepers. You mentioned incentives. That is fantastic. And in addition to incentives, how do we create a psychological safety for the middle managers to lead? Because these people are specialists and experts to lead linear workflows with clear expectations, clear deliverables on monthly, quarterly basis. But taking them into the innovation space means them taking them into the uncertainty and asking them to lead uncertain processes or uncertain outcomes. Lead processes with uncertain outcomes. So how do we build some psychological safety for them in addition to the incentives that you highlighted? And I cannot agree more.
Let me think. When running a grassroots program, innovation or otherwise, be it Six Sigma that GE and Wipro ran, or be it Lean that Toyota and others ran, or be it innovation that firms like Cognizant ran, the underlying behavior of top management, middle management, and the operating layer is not very different. So your question is spot on. But the answer is difficult. Most of the ideas, a good percentage of problem identification and ideas come from those who are actually doing work, which is not people like me, which is people which are employees on the ground. We'll have to live with that. Now, coming to the middle manager, the way rewards and recognition of what happens within his portfolio is very important. And the same applies to top management. Now, let me give a simple example. We learned this maybe 10, 15 years back while running Lean and Six Sigma. Scorecards that are transparent, that compare very cleanly, not without rating and ranking, the different business units or different middle managers or different accounts or different whichever unit you want to use in an organization that publish the data on a weekly monthly basis automatically create energy at the middle layer, because I don't want my metric to be any lower than yours for 3 weeks in a row. So when I see that on a dashboard and I see my name is at the bottom, then I want to do something to come to somewhere in the center. And this by itself, without doing, there is no carrot, there is no stick, but just clean, transparent, consistent reporting sliced across whichever layers you want to report it at, drives the organization forward. Important thing is accuracy, consistency. People should trust the data. That's very important. Once that is established, and then we start publishing comparative data, no need to call out, no honor roll required, no calling out of non-perform. Nothing is required. Just a simple descending order of performance will do the trick as far as middle management is concerned. And top management will go by business impact. And as long as top management remains supportive, I think we have won the day. And that's how I would think a program such as that involves the whole organization should be run. Grassroots innovation in this case.
That goes without saying, because there's no innovation that happens without leadership buy-in, without sponsors, the stakeholders buy-in. And unfortunately, this is the reality that many, both innovation leaders and employees do face across industries and across sectors. And I guess that in a way, like that responsibility does come for the leader, because that's the leader, that is the person who assures that whatever innovation is to happen is still in line with a business vision and business strategy and business priority, as long as we're innovating within the realms of an organization of any kind. So like there's so many, we can dive deeper into this topic, but I'm going to save that for another conversation, because then I want to come back to the rewards and recognitions in a grassroots level. When you organize a grassroots innovation, a campaign like this one, you may activate 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 employees, depending on the size of the organization. And then not all ideas will be selected for the next stage or for further. How do we reward those who participated, engaged, but not necessarily in the first run generated something that was relevant for that challenge, for that campaign? The reason why I'm asking this is because if we want to run initiatives like this, make them annual or periodic, so we have repeatable innovation happening in the organization, we want to make sure that we don't disappoint people, especially in the first run. And I'm asking all these with having a leader who hasn't done any innovation in an organization, has started contemplating and like trying to inspire these people what to do and what not to do.
So the way to skin that cat is rewards and recognition should again run on two swim lanes. Engagement rewards and effectiveness rewards both should run together, not one for the other. Now, the engagement rewards can be based on just the number of ideas somebody generated. Now, immediately you'll have a pushback saying, hey, if all of them are bad ideas, what do you do? Doesn't matter. As long as they are unique ideas, as long as they are not copied, pasted from somebody, as long as the associate has taken the pains to develop ideas, log them into the platform, and participated in the initiative, and if he has contributed to 1,000 ideas vis-a-vis somebody else's 750 in a year, please reward him. However, have another metric and another reward for associates with the maximum number of implemented ideas, which can be a slightly higher quantum, slightly more visible. And now you get the drift, right? So you can always design the rewards and recognition program to start from the lowest forms of engagement all the way to the highest form of impact. Now that's the design part. The implementation part is they have to be you have to draw a good line between the one big award for engagement and effectiveness at the end of the year that can come from the in the annual summit or from the CXO or when he travels, CEOs and others. But it's also important at the factory level, division level, account level, SBU level to have quarterly, monthly awards that do not dilute the value of the R&R program, but create a pull from the larger organization saying, hey, I can do this too. I can be there too. Because all of, our schooling system, and I specifically talk about Indian schooling system, and mostly I can see that here in London too, because of the continuous grading, by the time we come out of schools and colleges, we are clustered into two. One, the high performing few that are the nerds, and the average everybody else. Now, it goes without saying, people like me fall under the average bucket. So this is the image we have in our mind. So how does the initiative make somebody like me look up to and aspire for something? And that is through the quarterly, monthly reward program. And of course, it shouldn't overdo it, but how to drive the quality and impact, that is through the annual reward and recognition program. In summary, both of them, the volume and the high quality awards, should go hand in hand for an initiative to succeed.
And I love how you're highlighting also that the human component of measurement, the efficiency and effectiveness of activating innovators. Because when we talk about measuring the success of innovation and impact, most of the questions that my friends, my clients, people on the World Wide Web talk about is the ask to demonstrate the return on investment. So when do we measure the return on investment of the grassroots campaign activities, grassroots innovation activities in corporations?
Before that, I will sort of segue into how do you instrument the organization structure to deliver results, and then we'll go to how to measure the results and effectiveness, etc. Right? Think of this as a 2 by 2 matrix. The bottom axis is implementation time and implementation effort, low and high. That is implementation, the effort needed to implement an idea, low and high. And on the vertical axis, let's have impact, low and high. Now, so you have 2 by 2. Now, on the bottommost left-hand side square, you have low implementation effort and low impact. Now, these are the classical Kaizen's small improvements that nobody outside of the associate who's bringing up the idea should be tasked with the implementation. We cannot, leverage the organization bandwidth for implementing those. They have to be, AI can be used to classify them at least to 90% accuracy. And the associate who's bringing it should implement it. If he doesn't implement it, so be it. No more investment of organizational resources and managerial bandwidth on that quadrant. Now let's go to the quadrant above, which is low implementation effort, but high impact.
High impact.
These ideas should move to the middle management layer for them to own them and make sure that they are implemented. One. Two, to make sure that the impact is measured and quantified. and reported to internal organization on and to the client. That is where the middle management responsibility comes in. They should own this. So they may not be the layer that is generating ideas, but they are definitely the layer that are absorbing this, upper quadrant ideas and making sure that management bandwidth is expended in the right direction to see those ideas are implemented. Now let's come to the right hand side. High implementation effort and low impact. Don't even go there.
No.
Just that just it is not worth the organization resources. Ignore that. Reward people for having come up with those ideas, top 10, top 20 at a company level or whatever, but no more effort beyond it. Then comes the right hand side top quadrant, which is high impact and high implementation effort. These are potentially good adjacencies or potentially transformative ideas. Now, these have to be taken to the top management, the VPs and senior VPs of an organization that review this, shortlist this, put together a business plan around it, form a team around it, and then implement it over a 3, 6, 9 months time frame so that they deliver business benefits. So that's how I would, a grassroots innovation program, when it is governed towards effectiveness, has to be layered and governed so that everybody doesn't go into a sinking hole, rabbit hole, right?
I love this. And the only addition that I would make to the quadrant is that maybe one, but even if somebody comes, if I see that there are certain employees that are continuously coming up with the ideas that are high impact and high effort, that do have potential for adjacency or transformation, or like radical or breakthrough innovation, as we refer to them elsewhere, then I would put them in the entrepreneurship program within the organization, because I do want their vision to fuel the development of that solution. Because the fact that they had the idea, they have also the vision of how that solution might look like once solved, once developed. And that would be an excellent identifier of high potential employees, very driven employees that do deserve and merit to be given the chance to become entrepreneurs in the organization. And I agree, for like very low effort, low impact, let the employees implement those. Low effort, high impact, collaborate with the managers, because then you do want to give that ownership to the managers, but you also want to keep some ownership on the employees. Because one of the ideas, what I love about activating innovators and the grassroots innovators, is to sharpen the lens. On one end, we become, as humans, we're sharp to identify the frictions, the problems, things that bottlenecks, things that don't work. But then when we're given the opportunity to join an ideation, an innovation challenge, anything like that, now we put the lens of like, how might I solve this? And so if I take that agency from how I might solve this, then I'm not cultivating innovators, or not, I'm not helping people sharpen that other skill of theirs. So then with this quadrant, then to go back to my original question, how do we measure the return on investment? Because the CEO will still ask that at the end of the day. If initiatives like this don't generate some currency / dollar wise measurable results of any kind, at some point they may go like, okay, I don't want innovation. I don't see benefit from initiatives like that. Let's put a pause on that for a while. So how do we measure the financial returns?
See, my experience so far, I'll come with the end first, right? The the returns, tangible returns, have been far in excess of the investment made in the core team. That's the only measurable effort. The only measurable budgetary allocation is the dedicated core team. We should not get into the rabbit hole of trying to quantify the effort hours of every associate who's logging or implementing an innovation. That kind of a fine grained forensic measure is not required. So your investment is restricted to the products and platforms and licenses and the dedicated core team, right? Now, The returns come from the 300, 400, 200,000 people in large firms that are innovating. And my experience is it far outweighs what the company has invested in. Now, let me parse this a little more, right? Benefits can be hard and soft. Now, let's keep the soft benefits aside because accountants are never comfortable with soft benefits. Now, the hard benefits can be firm facing, client facing. Now, in a services firm, could be firm facing and product or user facing in a manufacturing firm, or in other industries, it could be different dimension. Now, let me talk about hard benefits that are firm facing and client facing. That's the next categorization. And within that, you have revenue benefit and a margin benefit for both, for the firm and for the client. Once this thinking is clear, every innovation that is implemented can be qualified as, is it a firm benefit or a client benefit? And within that, does it give revenue impact or does it give margin impact? It's not very difficult. Then comes the question of quantifying it, making it accurate, making it measurable, and reporting on a standard platform with suitable governance controls. And once that is in place, the dollars will start moving in. Now, let's assume, say, at an large organization, somebody comes and says, I have saved $120 million, some such number, large number. Now, will the entire 100 million flow down to the P&L statement? It will not. But let us not waste time, because I have heard in my previous organizations, this question always used to be asked, saying, hey, where did the money go? That's very difficult, Liliana, for somebody who's running the initiative to now explain to an accountant, where did this few millions that is being reported here go? Is a difficult exercise. I have not been entirely successful in answering that. Now, if say 100 million is for a round number reported as the profitability impact for the firm, if one takes the time to go through what has contributed to the 100 million, which I have done in my different roles, I'm reasonably certain at least 60 to 70 million is really hard savings. Now, what happens? Why is that we don't see this money flow down to the profitability? Is because some of the gains are given away as additional benefits to clients, which is not costed. Some of them are given away as reduced usage of licenses, people, etc. Which, see, at the end of the day, the business need of a team is to operate the business, is to run their project well, to measure their project and remain within the cost parameters. There is no point in setting up a huge costing mechanism to make sure that every dollar saved through an innovation program is accounted for. That's not required. As long as the fundamentals are set up in place, the governance is in place, that is the signing off, have three levels of governance. The guy who's reporting the idea quantifies it, categorizes it as revenue, profit, client. Then it goes to the guy's manager who knows the business, who says this is okay, this is not okay, and he approves or rejects or edits or modifies. Then it goes to another independent function, say the delivery excellence function, that beyond a certain levels of money reported, they get into a governance check. Once this is done, you can be reasonably certain that at least 70 to 80% of the reported number is hard indeed. But for all of you listening on this call, if you expect that number to be additive directly onto your P&L statement, I think you're wasting your time. Don't bother. Establish correct measurement systems, establish good governance, make it robust and auditable, and then believe what comes. That's the way I would run this. And the value will show for itself because clients will start telling you, hey, yes, I did see. They will come and say, look, I know your team is claiming 4 million in savings, but I think it is around 2.5. But 2.5 is not bad.
It's
So
still
instead
a
of
saving.
spending, yeah, it's still a saving. So instead of spending all time and trying to figure out how do I align 2.5 and 4, take the 2.5, run it and make it repeat. That's, I think, is the, you know, uh, executive psyche that is required to run some of these programs. And the leader who's running it, it's not that I have not faced such pressures, either in my last role or in my previous roles years before. But then it is the leader who has to somewhere, and my bosses. I don't want to mention a name. There was a very good guy who ran the whole program in the previous firm at Wipro, who really, the sort of held back the pressure and didn't pass it on. Now, just because I'm coming under pressure from my bosses to say, hey, where is the dollar going? If I pass it on to the larger organization, I will kill the initiative. Now, that is my job as a leader to do what it takes to see how to ascribe the right flow to these numbers without destabilizing or demotivating the organization beneath. And that muscle I should have as a leader.
You must have been lucky. You must have had a really good leader. And I've had great leaders in my career as well. And it's amazing how much we also learn and the courage that leaders like that instill in us to go and pursue what next and pursue even what something may seem initially impossible. So with that said, like I would really want to learn from you like of an example or two, like with all this great work you've done on activating innovators through grassroots innovations, what are like maybe one or two or three solutions that came up that whenever you think of those, they bring a smile on your face. You're so proud because they people came up with solutions that you would never come up with. Clients were delighted. People could not believe that they could have solved something the way that they have. So give me some of the results that keep you inspired
I
and motivated.
don't think, no, I'm smiling because I can't get into details. I'll end
As
up
much as you
compromising.
can.
So I'll give you areas where, normally the savings impact comes from. The most client delight is when the service provider or the associate has proactively identified a, an user journey, a customer journey that was causing trouble and that has got solved. Clients are the most happy when you tell them, hey, there was this 10% of your customers facing this user journey in your product. By the way, this is the root cause, this is the solution, and we have done it. And there are a lot of examples like that where user journeys have got sorted out. The bottlenecks have got removed for clients. Now, product firms and applications in the application landscape, performance is a big issue. Now, ideas that improve the non functional performance parameters of an application or an infrastructure also elicit a lot of happiness from everybody who touches it. Now, COOs of client firms are very happy when you go back and tell them, look, there were these a few thousand licenses that were lying unutilized or underutilized. By the way, we have fine tuned them, and this saves you a few million a year. It's music to their ears because they are handling millions of dollars in budget. They just don't have the bandwidth to look at the smaller ones. But when the team goes back and says, I've saved you 5 million, they're really happy. And the list can go on. Or in the life sciences space, regulatory compliance, any innovation around making regulatory compliance easy or filling a gap really makes customers happy. Or in let's assume the big tech firms, the internet facing tech firms, if teams come back with ideas on this particular product category doesn't seem to be moving in this region. However, we find that it is moving in some other region and so on and so forth, or the inventory is piling up here and you have aging product somewhere else. You would think that most of the online big firms have all this information, and that is true. They do have it, but they also don't have some information that actual employees working on these products day in and day out can find. And such feedback is really music to their ears. So, just no limit on what grassroots innovation can do to enrich the lives of all stakeholders, actually.
Alexis, we're coming close to the end of our first part of our discussion. So, in this first part of the episode, we talked about the strategic aspect of shaping the grassroots innovation initiatives. What is one burning question that you don't have an answer yet to about grassroots innovation that you would love to direct to the audience of this podcast?
That's a good one. Let me think. I think what I've struggled with, what I've had people ask me is, for which I don't have a clean answer, is how do you balance between volume and impact? The how do you balance between incremental innovation and transformative innovation? Where do you draw the line, and how do you pivot from one to the other, or should you pivot at all? Is a question that all of us will face. Now, it'll be nice for the audience to think of the answers, but I would think that's a bridge one will have to cross, or at least encounter in some shape or form when running a large program such as this.
There are studies about the impact of volume of ideas and submissions versus the quality of submissions in open innovation, open crowdsourcing campaigns. And I'd be thrilled to learn what people have to say. What do they think on the balance between volume and impact in a corporate or setting? So I'm so curious to see what we are going to hear back. Alexis, thank you so much for this first half of the episode, and I cannot wait to dive into the second part.
Thank you, Liliana. Waiting to catch up with you again.
There's so much wisdom in the conversation that I just had with Alexis that I'm still grappling my mind around it. But one thing that stuck with me and I'm taking away in particular, especially because it is something that popped up in previous conversation, is that how we define innovation in our organization determines who do we see or who do we activate as innovators. So when we see innovation only in a breakthrough or transformative capacity, then very few people will see themselves as innovators. But when we recognize innovation in its incremental capacity and broaden the definition to include incremental innovation as well and recognize it as such, then we draw everybody in. If you are a leader who is mandated with innovation in their organization, if there's no definition, take a step back and see, how do you define innovation? And probably that will going to solidify the foundation of then how you activate or who do you activate as innovator in your organization. And as we concluded this first part of the discussion, Alexis left us with a question that puzzles him when it comes to designing and activating grassroots innovation within enterprises. And he's curious to learn from you on how do you balance between volume and impact? How do you balance between incremental and transformative innovation? Where do you draw the line and how do you pivot from one to the other? If you have faced this tension, Alexis wants to hear from you. I want to hear from you. So feel free to comment below, send a message, or even share a video message with your answer, in which case we ask you to tag us so we can follow up. And if today's conversation has sparked your curiosity to learn on how you might activate grassroots innovators in your setting, go to opensolvestudio.com. We empower leaders with or without innovation in their title to activate innovators, innovation, and build innovation capabilities that outlast the changes. I'm your host, Ileriana Kachaniku, and this was Activate Innovation Lounge podcast. Until next time, stay curious and keep activating.